It's something that the French philosopher René Descartes around the 17th century came to. He said, I want to sit back and do an examined life, in the sense that I want to get rid of anything that I think has a good amount of doubt in it. Does God exist? I don't know. Okay, if I believe in God, that needs to be in the footnotes now. Okay. Do I know who I am? I doubt it. So in the footnote now. And all of a sudden you realize there is nothing in which you can really believe with certainty. Everything is doubtful. Everything is. Everything is uncertain. And if that's the case, well, what the hell do you do? Let me give you... Do you have any other questions or comments before we move on into something more ridiculous? Yes, one. The remorse and the guilt of your wrongdoings. Oh man, that is tough. Okay. Let me share with you a movie first that some of you may enjoy actually going out there and watching. By the way, before I talk about one's question about how do you overcome the guilt and remorse that live inside you, there was a movie that came out in 1962, I think. It's black and white. It's the life story of Helen Keller. I don't know if you guys know who she is. It's called The Miracle Worker. It's about a young woman who can't see, who can't hear, and who can't speak. And so the parents have difficulty figuring out what to do with her. And this is the 1960s. So, I'm sorry? No, the movie came out in 1962. And so during this period, of course, when Helen Keller was born, they didn't really treat such people with dignity or respect. They just thought they were sick and they would put them in an institute of sorts. So the parents were rich enough to hire a teacher. Her name was Anne Sullivan, I think. And she kind of trains this young girl to learn sign language, and then to kind of have access to her intuition. And then all of a sudden, but the point I'm trying to make is, if you want to kind of relate yourself to the story, think of it this way. All of us in this class are deaf in the sense that we hear things, we just don't interpret them well. Okay? And it creates a good amount of heartache for us in the future because we don't listen well and we don't learn well. Second is, when we speak, usually we can't really express what lives inside us adequately. So people are always misunderstanding us. And we can't see because we fail to observe things the right way. And we don't really care to observe things the right way. And the only way to correct all these flaws, as I said previously, you need to find a teacher who can see for you, hear for you, speak for you, and interpret for you. And then your story will very much become like Helen Keller's. So watch the movie. It's really, really good. I like it. So let's talk about forgiveness and then remorse. Human beings are engaged animals, which means what? We're always doing something. We're either doing something with our bodies or we're doing something with our minds. Okay? We either act it out physically or we speak it out. Okay? Now, whatever it is that you're expressing reaches this other person. Okay? Now, So if you're acting out with your physical body, it means you're kind of engaging with this other person's physical body, and so you have physical harm, okay? Sometimes you speak, and then you emotionally hurt or injure someone, okay? To give you an example, for example, if you're a parent, and there comes these moments, tiny little moments, where frustration just overtakes you, you become really, really angry because your kids don't listen to you, so you spank them. This is not assault, okay? You spank them. Once you get in the habit of spanking, then the pressure increases, and that becomes an assault. Now, so you can hurt people either physically, you can hurt people emotionally, okay? And emotionally, I mean the following. You have a son who runs to the father and because he wants a hug, you may kick him. Or you may say, get away from me. And now you have hurt, okay? Now, let's just say that you have someone in your class who's a Christian, let's just say. Now, you begin to tell them the history of Christianity. Remember, Christianity is nothing but a set of belief systems. Okay, these are things you believe. And whatever it is that you believe, it forms your identity. It tells you who you are, what you are. Where in the grand scheme of things you belong. So when you tell the history of Christianity to someone, let's just say you talk about the Gospel of Judas, all of a sudden, not only are you hurting someone's belief system, i.e., the intellectual body, but you're also hurting them emotionally. Okay? Now, the thing you need to understand is this. All of us in this class have been conditioned by the environment in which we were born and raised. If your parents are Christians, you're going to be a Christian. You're not going to be a Buddhist. If you see your parents reading the Bible all the time, those are the kind of books you're going to read. Okay? If you live in an environment that's filled with violence and drugs, there's a good chance that you're going to have emotions that are going to be very, very closely connected to drugs and to violence. Okay? Now, there are two things. One, Alex and the rest of you, there are things that are actually poison, and there are perceived poison. Let's say you raise your hand and you say, I think I know what love is. And how old are you? Like 19. I'm going to shut you down. And you're going to say, I'm an American. I'm entitled to my opinion. Even if it's bad. And I try to correct it. And you perceive that I'm actually crossing lines with you. Okay? So this is perceived assault. If on the other hand, I come over there because you say you know what love is, and I actually slap you, that's an actual assault. Okay, so there are two things that are judged. One is perceived, one is actual. You can never be wrong with actual. Is it night or is it day? You look at outside, the sun is out, you say it's actually sunny. Is it raining? No. Okay? Now, let me set up a scenario for you. There is a teacher in India, and he has a student. Every day, the student comes in the classroom late by 15, 20, 30 minutes. And there's a tradition, long tradition in India, that if you have a student who comes in late, and we're talking about like 10-year-olds, and they disrupt you and your class, you call them to the front of the classroom, you grab your ruler or stick, you have their hand stretch out, and you stick them. Right, Tenzin? Right. In Buddhism, this is called the stick of compassion. It's supposed to create discipline for you, give you a sense of right and wrong. So this teacher has been kind of spanking this child, this 10-year-old, for like 4 months. One day, this teacher, and remember, the teacher assumes that what he's doing is right. One day he's driving to get some bread, and he sees this young man. This is before class. He sees this young man carrying or pushing his mother on a wheelchair to the bread shop. And he's a tiny little kid, and the wheelchair is heavy. His mom is heavy set. And then he just waits and waits and waits to see how long it'll take for this kid to take his mom back home. And it takes him approximately 25, 30 minutes. And then from the bread shop or from his house, he runs to school. And so he's late always, 30 to 40 minutes. See, the teacher has now this understanding as to why the student is always late. Before that, he didn't. And because he didn't have the understanding, he gave himself the right to punish this kid. Now that he has this understanding, he feels really, really bad for what he has done for the past 4 months. So you know what he does? The following day, he sees the student come to class late. And out of habit, the student doesn't even go to his seat, goes right to the teacher and says, here's my hand. If you want to stick it, put a stick to it. And the teacher kneels on the floor, grabs the student's hands, and begins to kiss it, and then apologizes. At what point do you catch yourself having done something that you shouldn't have? And the key word here is you need to catch yourself. And this happens in 2 ways. So let me tell you a story of how these 2 ways come about by going back to one of my favorite thinkers, Jean-Paul Sartre. And I'm going to create the story. It's not true, but it's a fun story. I've told my students for the past 40 years. When I first moved to Oakland, remember this is only a story. Okay? Don't try it at home. When I first moved to Oakland, I was looking for a place. And it had to be a rush job because Blaney called me and said, you have to start tomorrow. And I didn't want to drive all the way from Roseville. So I knocked on this door and I said, you've advertised the room. Can I see the room? I'll pay you double. And the woman said, fine. So I get this room on the second floor. There are 3 stories or floors to this house. The first floor, the mother lives. The second floor, I live. The third floor, her daughter lives. I'm sorry, I'm on the third, she's on the second. So as I'm going one day to my room, I realize this music is playing and it's loud and the door is cracked and this woman is dancing. This young woman. A very, very young, attractive woman. And she was dancing completely naked. Now, go back to what we had put on the board. There is music, I hear it, I become curious. That curiosity becomes a driving force. I peek through the cracked door, want to see what's going on, and there's a woman dancing. Okay? She's young, she's attractive, she has a nice body, so I keep looking. She doesn't know I'm there. I do this every single day for the next 5 years. Invasion of someone's privacy, but that's okay, I don't really mind. One day as I'm sitting, eating my Subway sandwich, pushing it down with Coke, watching this woman dance, all of a sudden I feel something on my shoulder, and it's the mother. I turn around and she says, what are you doing? I got caught. And the moment I get caught, all of a sudden I say, Amir, you're an 80-year-old man. You should know better. What are you doing? Why would you invade somebody's privacy? Instead of spending time, wasting time watching this woman dance naked, you should have gone up there to your own room. Maybe you read the Bible. Maybe made better assignments for your students. So the thing you need to understand, no one requires forgiveness. No one demands forgiveness or remorse or has remorse inside them if they haven't gotten caught, either by your own awareness or someone pushing you into awareness. If you don't get caught, there is no guilt. If you don't get caught, there is no shame. See, when he asks about forgiveness, you can't forgive anybody if they don't get caught. They won't take you serious. They're not going to self-examine and examine their own actions or behaviors. And now the question is, how do you create guilt inside someone? Let me tell you. Alex, you haven't done the assignments. Do you wish to fail this class? What have I done? Yes. No, Alex, listen. We're talking about getting caught. I helped you catch yourself in regards to the assignments. See, up to this point, for the past hour and a half, you were sitting comfortably. You weren't moving a chair. And so what happens? I say, Alex, you haven't done your assignments in front of these people. And what happens? I push you into shame, maybe guilt, maybe remorse. Something you weren't able to do last week when the assignments were due, or the week before that, or the week before that. And that's the point I'm trying to make. This wasn't about you, really. But thank you for allowing me to use you as an example. Okay, it's not about making any of you feel bad. But the point I'm trying to make is you need to get caught. It's only in catching yourself and keep catching yourself where change can come about. Otherwise, it won't happen. Now, there are a couple of things. One, if, let's say I am abusive, and if you were to be my son, and if I keep hitting you, first, there's a good amount of anger inside me. Then one day I catch myself. See, when you catch yourself, it's like you have this brand new information or insight about yourself. But that insight is not enough for change. You just see something. Imagine forgiveness, remorse, or guilt in a healthy way. If they could be something constructive, if they could be like cooking some dish. What do you need to cook any dish? Go ahead, Joaquin. Sorry? You need different parts. You need a pot, you need some heat, various ingredients. How is guilt created? So, there is John, there is Abe, and there is Gail. Gail has a relationship with John, all of a sudden finds herself attracted to Abe. And now she's conflicted. She feels guilty. She thought herself to be more mature, bigger than that. She no longer acts like an infant, pursuing this and then that the next moment. She thought that she has enough maturity for stability, but that's not the case. When did she catch herself? And how did catching herself create this conflict? And why was the conflict so big that she decided to get rid of a 5-year history with John and go out with someone who's unfamiliar, an unknown? Remember, nothing can be wrong if it's not being judged. And all judgments have to do with a certain way of looking at things. Look at Deontay. It was only maybe a couple decades ago that he couldn't drink from the same water fountain as the white people. Look at me. When I go to the airports, every single hole I have in my body is checked. All of this have to do with a certain belief system. And when someone doesn't fit into that belief system, what happens? They get judged negatively. Now, where do judgments come from? Your conditioning. If you are a Christian, you were born in sin, live in sin, die in sin, unless you accept Jesus Christ. If you are a Buddhist, there is no sin. You're just ignorant of basic truths in life. If your parents have been polyamorous with lots of different people, and should you engage in that behavior, what's going to happen when you look at a guy and say, okay, I'm out? The guy is going to say, what's wrong with you? Not knowing that that has been the foundation of your life. Nobody sticks with one person for too long. He's judging you with the wrong pair of glasses. Is any of this making any sense to you people who are useful? Now, there are good judgments and then there are bad judgments. Good judgments are ones that are founded on a good amount of examination and research. No one can always be right about everything. Bad judgments are based on assumptions. You want to make sure you walk away from assumptions and move towards things that are, for the most part, are very clear about. Now, when I say to you, you should sit and do your assignments, it means what? I know. If you're a Christian, one of the 7 deadly sins is called sloth. You're lazy, thinking is tough, sitting down, writing a coherent essay is tough. And I say you're 17, if you're able to overcome the laziness for maybe 5 years, by the time you're 25, you'll be rich with degrees, and you'll be hired by companies, and you'll make over 100,000 a year. So when you don't do an assignment, I judge you with an F. But not so much about you not understanding philosophy. You not understanding your own future. I don't care if you understand philosophy. Most of you can't, but that's besides the point. We have like 3 minutes so we can do a couple of quickies and then go home. Anyone?
I don't know. It's like advertising. Especially like here in like modern America. It's soap, like you see like so many ads every day. So it's just, it takes advantage, like the thing, they very much understand that, and they know how to take advantage of it. Like as you can buy things on how they work.
Any other question? Abigail? Just say something. There you go. Well, if there was a question, it would be what? Hurry up. You don't know. Okay. So what you have, Alex, is this. Imagine Abigail or someone else in this class had a question. I look at your question and I look at his question. There are two different pieces of advertisement. You want to talk about, let's say, forgiveness. He wants to talk about zombies, for example. Okay, these are two kinds of advertisement. And then I have to sit back and say, okay, which advertisement do I want to buy? We have been in the business of creating and selling advertisement as long as we've been alive. Religion is advertisement. Laney is advertisement. When you raise your hand, you ask a question, you're advertising. That I have this question, you should take it seriously. Can you please respond to me in a very clear, concise way? It's a piece of advertisement, okay? So if you're nothing but billboards walking around, why is she interested in, what was his name? Abe. Abe was a piece of advertisement. His face was a piece of advertisement. His voice was a piece of advertisement. What happened to her? She bought them, and now she likes them. It's no different than buying a car. Okay. Now the question is, what sort of advertisements do you want to be around? And that depends how you see yourself, what you want for yourself. Because if you're confused as to what it is that you want, that makes you gullible, which means that almost anything out there can sell you things and you'll buy them. If on the other hand, you know what you want, you know who you are, it's going to be very, very, very difficult for someone from the outside to sell you things. You're talking about America, capitalism, and capitalism has only one function: to always push you into poverty so it can sell you things. Always make sure that you're dissatisfied. There is nothing with your cell phone. But eventually, AT&T will come up with Samsung Galaxy 555. It can dance for you. And even though there's nothing wrong with your phone, the advertisement is so powerful that it forces you to look at your phone and say, yeah, that doesn't really look good. And you only bought it just a couple months ago. Okay? Then you're also talking about Americans. For the most part, illiterate. They don't like to read. Their attention span is very, very, very limited. They're uneducated in so many different ways. Which means what ultimately? They buy whatever. They eat junk. If not physical junk, certainly emotional, intellectual junk. The only way that you can protect yourself from eating junk, hang out with good pieces of advertisement. And hang out with them for about 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And what will happen is those pieces of advertisement will create a force field around you. And they will protect you for the rest of your life. Read Plato. And when you read Plato over and over and over again, you'll have difficulty just going online and reading trash. You'll have difficulty going online and watching porn because your sense of beauty has changed now. And when you read Plato, because of what he advertises, every time you read something that is not like Plato, you'll feel guilty. And then you'll feel embarrassed. And then you'll have regret. And then you'll be remorseful. And then you'll go to Plato, you'll kneel, you'll cry and say, Plato, forgive me for I didn't know what I did. But if you just hang out with trashy things, then that's what you are, trashy. It's good to see all of you. Remember, Wednesday, there are no classes, so stay home, sleep, whatever. I'll see you on Thursday. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.